Ryan stood motionless in the darkness, barely able to breathe. Every light inside the farmhouse had vanished, except for the familiar yellow glow spilling from the upstairs bedroom. The terrifying scream had stopped as suddenly as it had begun, leaving only the steady sound of rain striking the roof. The old man slowly walked toward the staircase without saying a word. After several seconds, he quietly broke the silence. "This is where everyone makes their choice." Ryan looked at him in confusion, his voice shaking as he asked what choice he was talking about. The old man kept his eyes fixed on the glowing room upstairs before answering in a calm, defeated voice. Every person who entered the farmhouse eventually faced the same decision. They could save themselves, or they could save the people who had unknowingly taken their place. There was never a way to save everyone. Without another word, Ryan ran upstairs. The hallway felt colder than ever before, and the yellow light pouring from the bedroom seemed brighter than it had at any other point during the night. As he stepped through the doorway, he realized the room had changed once again. The young couple stood perfectly still in the middle of the floor, their bodies frozen as though time itself had stopped. Their eyes remained open, but the pupils had completely disappeared, replaced by endless blackness. They stared silently at the wall in front of them, unable to move or even blink. Standing only a few feet away was the little girl in the faded yellow raincoat. Slowly, she lifted her hands and pulled back the hood covering her head. Ryan expected to see the frightened face of a lost child. Instead, beneath the hood was nothing. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Only smooth, pale skin stretched across an empty face. Somehow, despite having no expression at all, Ryan could still feel that she was smiling. A voice suddenly echoed through the room, not from the little girl, but from every wall, every window, and every shadow surrounding them. It spoke slowly, almost gently, as though repeating words it had spoken countless times before. It whispered that every great storm needed new memories, and every house needed new guests. As the voice continued, the walls began changing before Ryan's eyes. Hundreds of old family photographs slowly appeared across the room, covering every inch of the walls. Some were faded black and white portraits, while others were newer color photographs taken decades apart. Ryan stepped closer and realized every picture showed different people standing outside the same lonely farmhouse. Families, travelers, police officers, truck drivers, children. People from completely different generations, all smiling as though nothing was wrong. None of them had ever escaped. Every victim the farmhouse had claimed had become another memory hanging forever inside its walls. Then, among all those photographs, one final empty frame appeared. Unlike the others, it held no picture at all. It simply waited. The whisper returned, "Choose." At that moment, Ryan finally understood what the farmhouse truly was. It wasn't haunted by ghosts. It wasn't cursed. It was something far older. The house didn't kill people in the ordinary sense. It collected them, preserving them like memories that could never fade. Every storm brought new visitors, and every visitor became another part of the house forever. Ryan looked at the terrified young couple, then at the old man standing quietly in the doorway. The old man didn't need to say anything. His sad expression revealed that he had once stood in exactly the same place, forced to make exactly the same choice. Ryan closed his eyes for a moment, before quietly saying the only words he could live with. "Let them go." The room became completely silent. The faceless girl slowly tilted her head, as though surprised by his answer. Then she reached forward and gently placed one hand against Ryan's forehead. The floor beneath them shook violently as the sound of rain became almost deafening. Every photograph hanging on the walls crashed to the floor at once, filling the room with the sound of shattering glass. A blinding flash of light filled the bedroom, and everything disappeared. The young couple suddenly woke inside their car. Morning sunlight had broken through the clouds, and the storm was gone. Confused and disoriented, they looked toward the forest where they remembered seeing the mysterious farmhouse the night before. There was nothing there, only an empty field covered with wet grass swaying gently in the morning breeze. Believing they had somehow become lost during the storm, they drove away without ever understanding what had happened. 3 months later, rescue workers finally discovered Ryan's abandoned car beside the old highway. The doors were locked, the keys were still in the ignition, and all of his personal belongings remained exactly where he had left them. His wallet, his phone, and his briefcase were untouched. Only Ryan was missing. Despite one of the largest search operations the county had ever organized, investigators never found a single trace of him. Eventually, the case was closed, and Ryan Carter became another unexplained disappearance blamed on the violent storm. As the years passed, the story slowly faded into local legend, until one autumn evening, after another night of heavy rainfall, a wildlife photographer entered the forest hoping to capture dramatic storm landscapes. While reviewing the photographs later that night, he noticed something impossible. Hidden among the trees was an old weathered farmhouse that he didn't remember seeing while taking the picture. Curious, he zoomed in on the upstairs window. Standing behind the glass was a man wearing a soaked black jacket. His face was pale with fear, and one trembling hand rested against the window. The timestamp in the corner of the photograph read 11:59 p.m. When the photographer enlarged the image even further, he realized the man wasn't looking out the window at all. He was staring directly into the camera. His lips silently formed two words: "Don't come." The next morning, the photographer returned to the exact location where the image had been taken. The farmhouse had vanished. There was no building, no road leading into the forest, and no sign that anything had ever stood there. Authorities dismissed the photograph as a camera malfunction caused by the storm, and it was quietly placed inside Ryan Carter's old missing person case. Years later, a retired detective reopened that file while reviewing unsolved disappearances. As he examined the strange photograph, he turned it over and noticed 7 words written across the back in faded handwriting. "The rain only stops for the living." The detective was certain those words had never been there before. Uneasy, he walked to his office window and looked toward the old highway where Ryan had disappeared years earlier. Rain had begun falling once again. Far beyond the trees, almost hidden behind the storm, a single yellow light glowed faintly in the darkness. Standing beside the road was a man wearing a soaked black jacket, silently raising one hand and pointing toward the distant farmhouse. Just as someone had once done for Ryan. The detective disappeared the following morning. He was never found. Even today, whenever storms become strong enough to flood the roads around that forgotten stretch of highway, people still claim to see a warm yellow light shining deep within the forest. And those who choose to follow it are never seen again.